So some of you have already been on stage today, and some of you have not. So based on the conversations that have already been going on regarding democracy and law, I'm going to just open it up for responses based on the topics that have already been going on. If anyone has something that they've been itching to get out and say, then it's all yours.
Not everyone.
The mics are yours.
Are we on here? Yeah, we're good. I want to talk about Bill C-36, the Online Harms Act. C-63, there's so many. Sorry, 36 is the one here in British Columbia. C-63, the Online Harms Act. It's going to be a really tough one for people in Marty and my position, having conversations on the internet about a myriad of different topics, especially here in Canada, or world topics. Sometimes the things that we say are controversial. I don't think they're controversial, but other people seem to think they're controversial. And it's really the arbitrary nature of just defining something as hateful. It makes it really difficult to navigate moving forward, especially if you can be put under house arrest, which is written in the bill, ankle bracelets, all of these language. This is why I always consult lawyers when I'm talking about these things. But yeah, I wanted to just make a statement saying that this is what's causing people to self-censor in our space, and not just shut up or even close their channels down completely. And this is why we need to fight against this. If you want to be informed, you're going to have to fight as well with us.
Yeah, and after listening to Art and Lauren, they are going to come after us. So now so I'm worried, because it's going to be our turn. So they're going to come after us. They've been coming after us. They're going to come after us. And I'm emboldened by what they did. So I will challenge. And so start crowdfunding now, because I'm going to need a lawyer, because they are going to come after us. And I'm going to, it's going to happen. I'm scared of it, but we'll.
And well, I mean, they've been politicizing and using these, the colleges as a weapon, using the bar as a weapon. It's only a matter of time. I've been telling people, get a trade. You'll be away from cancel culture altogether. But it's only a matter of time before they start using the industry training authority, things like that. They're going to keep coming. This is why we have to fight.
Yeah. If I run for parliament, I will have the world's biggest hidden agenda. I do think about it. I do honestly think about it. I would run just to become an insider and to expose what's going on. But I know from talking to people in government that I'll get ostracized. Even if you go in as an independent, you'll be pushed out. You're just not. Yeah, Brian's shaking his head. He knows. So it won't work. So I'd rather hold them accountable the way we're doing it, and I wanted to, I do have to pass the mic to Eva. She has to talk. I want her to talk about her engagement, and we're witnessing it. It does work, right? When you learn about how government works and how the law works, and when you read these acts and you get engaged, it's not complicated. Like, we go to constituency associations, and where I live, there is an association that is so active, and it's impactful. It's crazy,
Yeah, maybe just speaking to that, I don't know if this is on. Oh,
Yep.
It is. So I run two courses. One is about educating Canadians, and I have the Honorable Brian Peckford help with the history of Canada and the Charter, the lovely Umar help with the legal, so it's different parts. And I always have way more people sign up for that class than the one that's called Civic Speak, which I give a lot of homework, where you're supposed to get engaged and go to the City Hall and write a op-ed and things like that. And I have, in one of the classes that Brian did with me, he said, in very simple terms, democracy is hard work. And in the last class I just did, one of my students is here, a lady in the class said, I didn't know being a citizen was so hard. And I love that she said that.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, and then Brian enforces it all the time. It's fragile, right? Democracy is fragile, extremely. It's fragile and it's also scary, because it is majority rules, which is why we have the Charter of Rights. Because if majority rules and you're a minority, it's very scary. We live that, and the Charter's supposed to protect us. And some people didn't want, if you were against the vaccine, you were a minority. But you got, and then we witness what happens. I mean, we were not protected. So it's fragile, and it's up to us to protect it. And Brian, thank you for all your efforts and for leading that, giving us that charter and that path forward. But relax, take some time off, go biking, and let us take over. Let the next generation take the fight over for you. But sorry, I wanted to add, it's unfortunate that it is a fight, though. And it's a question I've been asked by a lot of people. Why are you still fighting? Because my kids, I'm an empty nester now. I mean, my oldest is 30, my youngest is 19 and in university. And why do I have to fight? Because the system is on the verge of collapsing, and we need to fight. And our children, the next generation, they just went through, imagine being a young adult now, who went through COVID. That's a tough start. So I'm like Brian. I'd like to just go ride my bike and go hiking, but we got to keep fighting. So, sorry, Chris. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, that's okay. I just knew if I didn't try and get a word in now, I'd never have it.
we sort of do this, the panels, don't we?
Okay, so speaking of fighting, how many service people and veterans do we have in the room today? Can you raise your hands? So we're talking about democracy. You are all way ahead of me. We're talking about democracy, and I just wanted to take a moment to thank the people that actually put their literal lives on the line to fight for the democracy that we enjoy today. So the reason I bring that up is that word fight, right? I'm Irish, so I think it's in my blood. I might enjoy it or something, but this fight that we have this idea, this false narrative that the veterans and our ancestors fought and died for our freedom so that we wouldn't have to, and that's a lie. Do you know why they fought and did what they did? It's so that we would have the opportunity to continue fighting and maintain that fragile democracy that we have. That's the reality. So I was excited to be on the democracy and law panel, not because I really know anything about law. Well, I mean, I do now because I've been dragged through it. But more importantly, our democracy is what allows us to shape the laws around us, right? If we don't like a law, we use the democratic process that people fought for, that we fight for, in order to change the laws so that we can accomplish the goals or have the protections that we want, right? That's how it's supposed to work. If we don't like the idea of being thrown in jail for potentially saying something that hurts somebody's feelings, we must use democracy to ensure that that doesn't happen. If we don't like the fact that our politicians can advocate for medical interventions that harm us and kill us and be immune from any type of accountability because of the legislation, we have to use democracy to change those. You want accountability? You want to start showing these politicians and these bureaucrats that, no, you can't harm us without being held accountable? We need to change some laws. Because right now, the law specifically says, I know this because I looked at it, the Public Health Act of Alberta says the Minister of Health or anyone acting under their direction in fulfilling their duty as minister, as long as they do it in good faith, you cannot sue them. So I cannot sue, what was her name? Dina Hinshaw, whoever it was? For what she did to me. I can't sue him or her for seizing my building because somebody might get sick unless we change that law. So number one, democracy is work. We had to fight to get it. We have to fight to keep it. And regarding the law, democracy is the tool that we have to change it. So if we don't participate and we just sit on our laurels watching TV, if you're going to watch TV, by the way, watch these guys. They're pretty good. then we really can't complain. But I think the people in this room, I don't think you're just about complaining. I think you want to act. So thank you for being here and hearing these things, because I think once more people hear it, we can start to change things.
I'm going to quickly add to that is words matter, and I actually am not comfortable with the word fighting for. Not because I'm scared, obviously I love advocating and I'm a lawyer, but I think that we've allowed those words to be overused. Chris Barber isn't listening, but I'm talking about him right now, he's not comfortable with the word being an advocate. And he's not. No, not even an advocate, an activist. Chris is a trucker and a farmer from Saskatchewan that was tired of what the government was doing and went and engaged in his civic responsibility. That's what he did. He was engaged in democracy. He was holding his government to account. But using words like an activist, is he? Are you? So I think we have to go back to the basics sometimes. I agree 100% with everything. Just like, let's even peel it back. Let's participate in this democracy that's there. It's not about fighting, it's participating and being involved.
That's a good point. And if I think about that, I realize that when it comes to engaging in democracy, the biggest fight that I face is with myself, right? And I think that might be true for all of us. The biggest enemy we have in accomplishing the things we want to accomplish is ourselves. We convince ourselves that, oh, you know, I don't matter. Oh, one vote doesn't matter. What difference am I going to make? So maybe, yeah, I like that. We're not fighting for democracy. We have to fight our own instinct to not engage and become engaged to do it.
I'm going to talk one more time, sorry.
All good.
You are fighting, though, in another regard. So one thing I didn't get an opportunity to talk about, and I'll just go straight to it right now, is there have been harms that have occurred throughout the COVID pandemic. Businesses were shut down, like Chris Scott's here and others. And in Alberta, although Umar, oh no, you didn't say this publicly. Well, that he called it a technicality, that the Ingram decision, which we could talk about that, but
it was a technicality.
that they didn't have
I
the
disagree.
authority to do it. Yes, but that they didn't have the authority to do it. The government only has authority to do what they're given authority to do, and wow, we already know it's a lot. In this case, they screwed up, so we were able to hold them to account there. Now there's a class action in Alberta where we are fighting for the harms that were committed on all these Alberta businesses, and same with vaccine-injured people. People were harmed. So yesterday we heard a lot about the problems, and as a result of the vaccines, there's hundreds of thousands of Canadians that have been harmed. And that's where lawyers come in, is then you can launch a lawsuit when there's already a harm to get some damages, get some accountability in that way through the courts. And Omar spoke about this very well. That's the system we have. Once a harm has already taken place, then you can hold the government to account that way.
You want to know how far she goes to hold the government accountable? I was in the legislature in Alberta with her, and she was running around trying to serve an MLA.
Yeah. She's served now.
And she says she doesn't like to fight, but look at how feisty she
Yeah.
is.
I have a personal question. So, over the last couple of years, I have traveled to and done events in many countries, but including the UK, the USA, Australia, and now Canada. I've done events like this in all these countries. And all of these Anglosphere nations have their similarities, but they also have some interesting quirks and differences. And one thing I certainly noticed right now, but certainly during the COVID era, was just the range of responses across these places. And that brought up a lot of questions for me. So I don't know if you guys are able to answer this, because you may not know yourself, but I was wondering why, for example, what was it that caused Canada and Australia's responses to be so much more extreme and tyrannical than it was, for example, in the UK or in most parts of the US? Is there something about Canada, Canadians, the political system, the cultural system that just made it more authoritarian in that regard? I got some interesting answers when I asked a similar question in Australia, and I learned a bit of Australian history as well. But why do you think, in Canada in particular, why did it have one of the craziest responses globally?
Well, I can maybe give an unpopular answer to this, because I spent some time thinking about this, and again, this doesn't take away from the discussions we've had, but you know, Zuby, I don't think Canada is the democracy that others think it is. I think we are a version of a dictatorship where we elect a dictator we like maybe a little bit more from time to time.
Yeah, and
And you know, traditional Canadian mentality, and certainly the stuff we grew up with, is it's a very polite, passive environment. We also don't have the Second Amendment.
Yes.
The U.S. does, right? And so you go ahead and go on somebody's lawn in the States, see what they do. You know, we don't have that.
Yeah.
And so the ability for that population to actually pose any significant threat is extremely diminished. And then you've got this rule that seems to be deferred to a great degree to global economic powers. I mean, our NDP, head of the NDP party, is a member of the WEF. The Prime Minister is a member of the WEF. Others before him have been members of WEF. And I think Canada is a perfect breeding ground to test out these legislative schemes, to test out these extreme measures, because it happens. Now, one of the most interesting things, and I'll let my fellow panelists answer, but one of the most interesting things that I saw coming out of COVID is Canada quietly passed a piece of legislation banning handguns. Nobody has any handguns, right?
That's not true.
Well, no, but it's extremely difficult to get a handgun in this country, and there are very restrictive rules. So it's not like the States where a lot of people have guns. We don't have a proliferation of them, is my point. And so the fact that we had to pass legislation, and then you see these draconian measures starting to come in with different acts and restricting freedoms, I think it all kind of ties into that. So I think that might be the reason we are who we are.
I have another thought on that. Sorry. Go ahead. Number one, Canada and Canadians are arguably one of the most apathetic democracies in the world. We have some of the lowest civic engagement of any democracy. In Canada, I believe the stat is less than 4% of Canadians have memberships in political parties. That is absolutely pathetic, and it allows the lunatics to run the asylum. The other part of it is, most other places in the world, in particular Europe and UK and that, they've experienced tyranny. Like, horrendous things have happened there, and they have literally, their recent history shows them that if they don't be involved and hold their governments to account, they're going to tyrannize them in brutal ways, right? So Canada's never seen that. We're a very young country. We're very inexperienced when it comes to that sort of thing, and that, coupled with the apathy, really allows those who have any kind of power just to do what they want without us rising up.
Interesting.
I just want to speak to what Umar said about being a test case. It's not like a conspiracy to say that was the plan. It was written in a book by Klaus Schwab, the global, or was it COVID-19, the Great Reset. It's a novel that he wrote.
Yeah. Subtle.
So it,
Do you know one thing?
which is so funny.
You'll never hear me say this,
conspiracy
but
theory to
do
say
you know
this,
one thing? You'll never ever hear me say this, but do you know one thing I respect about Klaus Schwab? He's very
Haircut?
He's very open about what he's doing. It's not very secretive. Like, he steps on stage in his supervillain outfit and is like publishing books on Amazon called The Great Reset and literally like telling you what he's up to.
Yeah, it was crazy. Before, so at one point it was still considered a conspiracy theory to even talk about them. But they have, hey, check it out. They have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
They're on there. they're talking about this stuff. And yes, it was a test case. You mentioned that it was Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. And incidentally, I was just in Japan, and you're seeing a similar groundswell of people saying, no, we've had enough, we're not doing this. It wasn't televised, but there was a protest that I was invited to just one day. So a viewer reached me through my Discord server and said, come out, there's a protest happening today. And I took the train to Ikebukuro, and there was thousands of people on the street. Thousands of people on the street saying, no, we're not going to join this World Health Organization treaty. And yeah, it's happening everywhere.
Good. Yeah, it's really fascinating to understand the differences between nations. It's kind of like a worldwide project of mine, and so I've been intrigued by that.
Can I give you one quick difference?
Please do. Go ahead.
Because I thought about this a
Okay.
lot too. I think one of the differences is, like we asked the question, who fought for our freedom? And yes, there was a battle in World War II and one in World War I, but the real battle for our freedom, we never fought it here. We had our freedoms sort of given to us by the monarchy, and we acquired them sort of gently. And as Brian said, we're still getting our controls as early ago as, in the 1980s. Whereas you guys, or the Americans, they fought for their freedom. They had a real fight. And
Yeah.
and we were looking to the Americans to come save us, but you were too busy and you didn't come save us. But you guys cherish your...
I'm a Brit. Don't get
sorry.
confused by the accent.
Yeah, so the Americans cherished their freedom, and I think we don't quite cherish it as much. We didn't fight for it.
Yeah, out of the Anglosphere countries, the USA definitely values freedom and fights for it the hardest. I think the UK is second. One thing I do notice about my home country is, like, we're really good at getting rid of politicians. Like, the UK has had, 6 prime ministers in the past 7 or 8 years, something like that. So, yeah, one thing that I don't know exactly how it's done, but one thing that the British public does is they don't put politicians on a massive pedestal. And if they hold their feet to the fire. So if someone is, like, massively underperforming or is being massively hypocritical or something, like, they get pushed out. And I think other nations, including the USA is terrible at getting rid of bad politicians as well.
We do the same thing in Alberta with premiers, but unfortunately the talent pool is so shallow, we keep kicking them out and re-electing bad ones.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go to lunch soon, but I just have one question, because I actually had two. I've got questions from multiple people, and they both actually are on a similar topic. And this is uniquely Canadian, so I'm just going to ask the question even though I don't totally understand the structure. And this is about the Governor General. So I have 2 separate questions about there being a Governor General in addition to the PM, and apparently a Governor General can get rid of a Prime Minister if they break the law or something like that. So I'm out of my depth here. But someone can jump in and save me about this.
Yeah, so again, we're very divided in this country on the role of the monarchy. Some of us, let's say me, don't like it. I don't like paying tax dollars for Harry and Meghan to chill in Deep Cove, BC. You gotta be kidding me. But look, there's a strong monarchist movement in this country who still likes the monarchy. Our constitutional system, or our legislative system, is set up where the Governor General and Council is the representative of the Queen. And so to pass a bill through law, you have to get of the King. Sorry. Oh my God! See, I told you
That's how
it was
much you care
monarchist in
about
the
it.
crowd. It's the King, damn it. Okay, all right, it's the King. And so you have to get royal assent on the bills for it to become law. Yes, they can technically kick out the Prime Minister, but more often than not, they're doing what the government in power is telling them to do, right?
One of the things everybody misses in this debate, and lawyers do too, you've got to remember the Supreme Court of Canada decision of 1981.
I was 2 years old, Brian.
What kind of lawyer?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry.
And who himself was, according to everybody except me, a constitutional scholar, was turned down by his own friends in the court. And this is in my recent speech that I asked you to go read on my blog. And I quote that. And so where we really are now, and so a lot of people are fighting yesterday's battles, is that by convention, the chances of the Governor General or Lieutenant Governors having any say in meaningful change to Canada is about nil.
Yeah, and
So we got to get on about that now. Over time, the monarchy, as even a decoration and as a symbol of our past, will be gone. But we must fight where we now have the power to fight. And that's what I was talking about this morning.
yeah, and just a reminder, yeah, the Governor General is the King's representative, but the Governor General is more or less appointed by the Prime Minister. So there's a conflict of interest there.
So I should have a word with Charlie?
Yeah, and then a conflict of interest that's so bad that in our history, we had a Governor General had to resign. So,
I'll have a word with the king of my country, okay. Crazier things have happened, who knows?